We're here with Dean Evans, the renowned punter and founder of Winning Edge Investments, one of our other sponsors, and Luke Murrell, who's the founder of Australian Bloodstock and owner of 2 Melbourne Cup winners, Protectionist and Gold Trip, who runs again this year. How are you guys?
Morning. Good, thank you.
Yeah, good. Thanks, John.
Thanks for coming on. So last year, you did a 2022 Melbourne Cup podcast, and you both tipped the $21 winner Gold Trip as your second picks. Luke, you tipped the $500 quinella in your top 5, including Emissary, who ran second at 25 to 1. Oh, wow. You even gave 2 other tips around the traps in that podcast, tipping as a bonus bet Rustic Steel at $13 to win the big dance at Randwick, and Nugget at $10, who ran second at Flemington. So we're looking forward to see if you can find anything else for us also, actually. Probably better off starting with the Melbourne Cup, which is what everyone wants to hear about. So, what do you guys actually generally look for in a Melbourne Cup winner? Maybe we can start with Luke.
For me, it's very simple. It's your first point of call is you have to have miles in your legs. If we look back through the history of the race, and the top 3 finishers, historically, they've all had 10,000 metres in their legs in that preparation. And I think that's very, very important. Obviously, some of these horses are running at the trip for the first time. Others have been here before. But it just seems to be a different pain barrier for the horses. And you're really looking for those fit horses. There's been some amazing trainers tried over the years to go in fresh or with limited miles in their legs. And while they can get away with it over the shorter trips, the Melbourne Cup has undone the best trainers in the world time and time again. So if they don't have that 10,000 metres in their legs, you're really, really behind the 8 ball before they even jump out.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry, John. Do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Yeah, Luke, so which horses in the race do you think sort of fit that bill? Which ones going into Tuesday have those miles in the legs that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's an interesting race this year. We've got a number of horses that have got that. And surprisingly, there's a couple there in the race that are hard in the market that don't. Overall, compared to previous years, I think we've got 13 this year from memory that have got that tick that box,
right?
And the other 9 don't. We've got the fittest horse in the last 30 years going into the race this year, which is True Marvel. He's got close to 49,000 metres. He hasn't had a spell in nearly 18 months, so that's an interesting tactic. Obviously, he's one of the outsiders, and he looks a fair income flat hurdler, but that's the fittest we've ever seen. We used to see horses like Red Cardinal and a few like that sort of come here and really have the moles in the legs, and they'd come here with no form overseas and all of a sudden perform here. And I know sometimes the connections put it down to they just like this environment, and maybe that was the case, but it's always a race each year. Because of the way the prize money is structured, you get paid down to 12th this year for 125,000, I think it is, if you run 12th, and then you get nothing if you run 13th. So a lot of connections will not only run just for the prestige of running in the race, but for some of these horses, they're badly out of form, and they're thinking if they can beat, 12 of them home, they're going to get a check that they probably otherwise aren't capable of getting at the moment. So it's that type of race every year, I suppose.
Yeah, and is there a lead-up race you sort of look at sort of going into the I mean, it's obviously, as a punter, it's one of the most difficult races to pick each year. Is there a lead-up race that you look at and go, well, that gives me the best indication of who's going to have a good run at the Cup?
Probably Dean there. His experience there always seems to, I read his articles all the time, and they just seem to come to the fore time and time again. So for me, not really. I don't place any more emphasis on one over the other. For me, it's more about that grounding and that setup, and I'm not a big fan, like it's a grand final. So these horses are right 110% ready to rock and roll. not a big fan of horses that are, 3 and 4 weeks. I see Serpentine is one of them this year that's sort of going in mad fresh. And then obviously you've got a couple of the imports. But the other thing with the imports, when you look at the ones that have been successful over here, they've always had a run right close to quarantine. And I think that helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, Dean, I might just throw that question your way then. Would there be a lead-up race that the punters could sort of look at and go, well, that's my best indicator going into the Cup?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's changed a lot over the years. I think historically people used to look at the Caulfield Cup as sort of the big lead-up. And yet over the last sort of 12 years, there's been 90 runners whose last start was in the Caulfield Cup for only one winner. And some of them, Bart Cummings used to like to back them up on, on the Saturday on Derby Day before the Tuesday. We've had 27 runners back up from 3 days before in the last 12 years for no winners. The best lead up in recent time, the last 12 years, has been Cox Plate Day, or either the Cox Plate or the Moonee Valley Cup. We've had 52 runners for 5 winners coming out of that day. The Geelong Cups had 21 runners for 1 winner. The Herbert Powers had 9 runners for 1 winner. The Bart Cummings, 14 runners for 1 winner. And then sort of these overseas horses, 62 runners for 3 winners. So it seems that sort of a quick backup, and even the Caulfield Cup, interestingly, if it's their last run, has not been a good lead up to find the winner, unless they do, what Gold Trip did, which is then running the Cox Plate afterwards, which, is then, one of the best lead ups. So that's sort of the best lead up into it. But I spent a lot of time on all of these big races doing sort of the historical stuff. And a lot of people with the Melbourne Cup, they talk about things like age, but age is reasonably irrelevant. In the last 12 years, we've had 4-year-olds to 8-year-olds win it. And every age in between, barriers are completely and utterly irrelevant. And interestingly, being a 2-mile race, even having actually run or won over 3,200 metres is irrelevant for 9. 9 of the last 12 winners hadn't even run over 2 miles before, and 11 of the 12 had never won over 2 miles before. So a lot of those factors that people like to talk about, and you see them in the papers and all that sort of stuff, are actually completely irrelevant. So the factor that surprisingly, I think, is most relevant is actually just, where they finished in their last 3 starts and how close to the winner they were, or if they won over the last 3 starts. If you might think over a 2-mile race, that horses might have a couple of runs over 2,000 or 2,400, and they might finish, a bit back and then sort of be warming up into it. But 10 of the last 12 winners finished first to fourth at their last start. 10 finished first to fourth at their second last start, and all 12 of them finished first to fifth at their third last start. So horses in form are actually the biggest pointer in all the historical factors. And again, if they won or finished within 2 lengths of the winner at the last start, 11 of the 12 winners had that factor. And at the third last start, either won or finished within a length of the winner with 11 of the 12 last winners. And in fact, all 12 the last 12 winners had a starting price of under $10 at the last start. So, you can look at all these different sort of form factors, but the bottom line is with 24, high quality horses, the Melbourne Cup winner is a horse that's in form, and has been likely to market at their last start, and has been reasonably consistent usually in their last 3 runs going into the race.
That's fascinating. Did you say the Caulfield Cup?
Yep.
Sorry, just to cut in. The Caulfield Cup's had 1 winner out of 90 or something.
That's with their Caulfield Cup as the last start.
Wow.
Before the Melbourne Cup. So yeah, it's really, and I think I saw something in the last 25 years has had 6 winners, but in the last 12 years, if their Caulfield Cup was their last run, 90 horses have come out of the Caulfield Cup for the last run and only 1 winner.
Wow.
So it is not proving the right form race as it used to be, and it's really the Moonee Valley Cup, the Geelong Cup, the Cox Plate, the Herbert Power, the Bart Cummings. They're sort of coming out of those races, but they're not coming out of the Caulfield Cup directly anymore.
I would argue, not argue, but I know a lot of trainers over the years, especially recently, find Caulfield just too firm, and a lot of horses struggle to pull up out of Caulfield. So, yeah, and those stats certainly back that up. So, yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, just got a question for both of you, if you don't mind. I'm sort of like a casual punter. I back one horse in the Melbourne Cup every year, and I've only ever backed one winner in my life. That was back in 2011 with Dunedin. Why do you think it is so hard for punters to pick a winner in this race?
Oh, you go, Dean.
Well, you know, I think a lot of your once a year punters, you know, at the end of the day, one of the simple factors that there's 24 runners.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so there's you know, it's a bit easier to pick a winner in an 8-horse race than a 24-horse race. I think the other factor is that in I'm not sure exactly my details, but the last sort of 15 years or so, at least possibly 20 years, there's only been 2 favourites win. So again, like your mum and dad are probably looking at the favourite and you know, wanting to back them, and it's not actually a race where the favourites have a particularly good record at all. So the big trumped up horses, particularly the ones that have come from overseas, you know, every year there's one this year again. You know, they actually flop more often than they win, and so you know, although you know, the horses generally sort of close to the market have a good record. It's not necessarily the favourite that you want to be in. You know, the favourites won one in the last 12 years, but then the second to fourth favourites have won another 5 times. And then the 5th to 10th favourites won 5 times, and then we had sort of Prince of Penzance, who I think was the second roughest horse in the race. It's sort of 150 to 1 in 1 year. So you know, it can throw up a big result. And plus you got the fact that you've sort of always each year got, you know, this year I think there's about 4 horses that haven't actually run in Australia before, and so you're trying to weigh up all that overseas form as well.
I normally bet on the one that's paying like $150.
That might be your problem.
Yeah. Isn't that the best way to do it, to chance the most money?
And look, I think what Dean just said there, you know, you're casual. I hear those people talk, you know, they either back the favourite, which Dean's just highlighted is probably a quick way to the poorhouse, or they go your method, which I'll take an absolute roughie. And I think that's why so many people struggle with the race. But for mine, it's a race I really look forward to because there's so many horses just can't win. And yes, there's 24, but a little bit of drilling down and you can really narrow it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at the trainers and the jockeys. Obviously, the names that stick out to me is, to be honest, not a big racing person, but the names that sort of jump out off the page to me, obviously Damien Oliver on Alenquer, you know, Chris Waller training Soulcombe, and yeah, just working down the list here. Karen McAvoy on Ashrun, Chris Waller with Sheraz, Chris Waller with Magical Lagoon, Gay Waterhouse, Military Mission and Serpentine. Chris Waller again with more Felons. Sorry if I've missed anyone there, but those names obviously jump out off the page to me. Of those names, who do you think sort of got the best chance this year of success? Or of winning, I should say. Yeah.
For mine, Chris Waller's very well recognised. He wins the Derby yesterday, so the once-a-year punters will naturally flock to Chris. But for mine, every year I think Chris's preparation for his horses, in his mind's obviously very good, but you look at the historical facts of the great man that's, you know, the most successful trainer in the race, and Chris does it exactly the opposite. His horses largely go into the race with not enough miles in their legs. Very elegant has been the one exception, and I think that was just a particularly weak year for mine. So I think Chris will be over bet, and he's probably done it again this year. So look, lots of different angles, and people can just throw a dart if they like and pick a name that they know. But
Yeah.
I think if you know, hopefully at the end of this podcast, me and Dean will be able to point you into some sort of narrow it down.
Yeah, that's a really good point you make there, Luke. Yeah, I guess, a bit of a surprise for someone like myself to see that Chris Waller's only had the one winner, and that was Very Elegant, as you said, back in 2021. That is a bit surprising to me that he doesn't have, and I know obviously a great achievement to win any Melbourne Cup at any time, obviously. But obviously, hazarding a guess, I would have thought he would have had more than just the one win at this point.
Yeah, but the racing meet is a funnier one. You know, there's only one or two channels, and they've got to talk about something. And the guys with the biggest numbers, and look, to be fair, him and Ma win the most races, so they get plenty of coverage. Kieran started to really hit the target with him, and I think he's got some huge numbers again this year in the race. So, they're just different methods. I think Ma's put a lot more grounding, and they chase more of those staying types, where Chris seems to have more of a selection and doesn't seem to have too many out-and-out stayers. He has more miles 2000, so might be just down to the horse flesh as well.
Do you guys want to go through each runner and get Dean and thoughts on the chances? Starting, of course, with Gold Trip, which actually that's your horse, right, Luke?
Yeah. Yep, no problem. For me, the history books say obviously he's got to break another record this year, which he broke last year, but he's got to carry 58.5, and I think I read somewhere, that takes us back to 1969 or something. So the best part of 50-odd years to carry this type of weight is always a bit of a concern. But I think from a Melbourne Cup point of view, gone are the days where it's been a really true handicap. He's officially rated 122, and you've got the bottom one there, True Marvel, at 102. So for a lot of these horses, he's still quite well in, because it's not a true handicap anymore. If it was a true handicap, perhaps he'd have a little bit more, and some of these lesser horses could have different weights than what they're actually carrying. So the race has turned into a lot more compressed, and that naturally will always help most of these horses close to the top of the handicap carrying the weight. So for Gold Trip, for mine, he doesn't have as many miles in the legs this year. He's only 8,600, which is, he's definitely going much better than he was last year, but he doesn't have the same grounding as he had last year. And for mine, that's my major concern. He'll run top four. He'll be right in the finish. The trip's no issue. He's a really tough horse, so the backup's never been an issue with him, and genuine top four chance. But hand on my heart, I reckon he runs second, third, fourth.
Okay. How about you, Dean?
Yeah, look, obviously he won this race, comfortably by a couple of lengths last year. I agree with Luke. I think he's going even better into it this year than he was last year. It's quite interesting. Usually in a race, if you drew barrier 2 and you had James McDonald on the board, you'd be very, very happy. There's no big positives, but I think with this horse, he would have preferred a wider gate. He's sort of a horse that really blends into the race, like he's in the Turnbull. And when he sort of has plenty of clear area, that's probably more ideal for him. And I suppose he just would have preferred to have his regular jockey, Mark Zara, aboard, who's ridden him so well so many times. And one time James rode him, I think he pulled up lane. I think, like Luke said, the weight's a challenge, but he's sort of good enough, I think, to carry it. And I sort of agree with Luke. I think he's probably very likely to run a place, but it's just whether that big weight on a bit of a firmer track, and just whether on that inside gate he's going to get the room that he likes to have usually to work his way into the race and charge home at the end.
His jockey is the heaviest jockey in the race, correct? 58.5.
So he'll carry the most weight. I must say, I think the change from Zara to McDonald is worth 2.5 lengths to him. Nothing against Mark. He's rode him quite well in some of his races, but James McDonald is a different planet to Mark Zahra in terms of ability and even tactically. Mark's done really well. He won on him first up, and he outrode him in the Caulfield Cup. He outrode Melbourne in the Caulfield Cup, which was, arguably could have finished 2 lengths closer. But I think that's one factor that probably is missed. Jay McDonald is the best in Australia by some way, and I think that's a real upgrade for the horse. And it's the one factor I'm sort of saying needs to be probably included, probably a bit higher than most people are allowing, actually.
So odds brought to everybody by Elite Bet today. It's Gold Trip paying $5 for a win and $1.90 for a place. Seems so bad to me, but as I said, I'm the uneducated one. So moving on to number 2, I don't know how to pronounce these horse names. Sorry, Alenquer. What are your thoughts on this?
Yep.
Alenquer, cool. You're gonna have to correct me every time I get it wrong.
Close enough.
So, what are your thoughts on Alenquer?
Look, I think his connections must feel very pleased to have him in the race, because he's done absolutely nothing over here. He ran in what I think was a suspect derby over in England. Ran a place there to sort of get that rating right up. Then Moroney's went and paid the best part of about $2 million for him through the sales, and since he's got here, he's done absolutely nothing. I know he finished close up the other day, which may be hinting at a return to form, but gee, you're pretty brave. Like his last win was May 2022 in a Group 1. It has to be said, at the Curragh, but look, he beat a couple of horses that either were out of form or didn't really stay the trip that day. So, and that was only 2000. So I think they're guessing here as far as trip. The sire over in Europe gets a lot of winners over this sort of range, but I thought he was flattered last start at Moonee Valley, and really I can't see him finishing in the top 6 or 7.
Does Damien Oliver help him at all, Luke?
Nope. No, they can't carry him. And
yeah.
No, I think, to be fair to Damien, he did me a couple of favours yesterday, but look, I don't think Damien's probably in the same form that he used to be in either. So I think, grand campaigners, but I'd be really surprised if they were there Tuesday.
Okay. And how about
it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree with Luke. It's just not going well enough, and I don't think he is good enough. He's got a crazy high weight, given how he's performing, and he probably doesn't run 2 miles anyway. So I think he'll be out the back, one of the last to finish.
Okay. Wow. He's paying $71. That's my kind of bet.
You can bet it with me or Dean.
That's just me handing $10 over to you. And so number 3,
bet with your head not over it, everybody.
Yeah. That's true. So number 3, Without a Fight. So that's they're paying $7 actually with Elite Bet right now. What are your thoughts on Without a Fight?
You want to go, Ben?
Well, he's obviously flying. He hit the line hard in the Underwood Stakes, and took up the Caulfield Cup last start. He ran the race last year. Going to presume that the wet track was sort of his undoing that year. I was quite keen on him. Horses that sort of have a run in the Melbourne Cup quite often, improve a lot at their next run. Very elegant. He's been about 4 lengths in a Melbourne Cup, and then obviously won it the year after. He's going really, really well. He sort of won 3 from 4 for Freedman's. They know how to train a Melbourne Cup winner, that family. And I thought his European form was good leading into it last year. I suspect Luke's going to say something about the miles on his legs, but maybe it's a little bit more like a Vow and Declare, although Vow and Declare did have some 3,000 metre runs in Brisbane before his Melbourne Cup run, which is probably the difference. But he's right in the mix. He sort of has all the right sort of form factors. and ticks a lot of boxes. Obviously, the big negative that I have is the stat I gave before, that only 1 from 90 have come out of the Caulfield Cup and won, so that's a negative. Plus, he's got a big weight, but he's certainly one of the big chances for me.
How about you, Luke? Is Dean right? Can I put money on Dean being right about your prediction with the legs?
Yeah, I think probably one thing we haven't spoke about was the speed in the race. And on my map, I've got half the field that want to settle midfield. And Without a Fight's definitely one of them. My biggest issue is where's he going to get to on the map, because I've got potentially 8 or 9 inside him. So he's obviously not going to sit out wide. That's going to force Zara's hand to go, does he go right forward, or does he, snag and go right back? I think Zara's style is he'll go back, because if he comes out midfield and has a look, his race will be over after about 400 metres, especially if he gets caught out there. So he's definitely going good enough. The ride in the Caulfield Cup was the PR for the race. Like, if you stop the race halfway, where you wanted to be was where Zara was. And then somehow he got around Mellon's heels, boxed the one to beat in, and then ran away with it. Sectionally was excellent through the line. It's one quirky thing, though. This horse is bred by a sire called Teofilo, and Teofilo, as a sire, bearing in mind he stands in Ireland, so he gets a lot of European runners, and there's a lot of 3,000-metre races. As a sire, his stats are pretty deplorable up over this trip. So not a lot of them run the distance. Lots of people wanted to make the excuse that he didn't handle the wet last year. Maybe that was the case. His form overseas is definitely good enough for this. My slight question, Dean touched on it before, about the miles in the legs. This horse, I'm saying, has enough, because when we look at his profile, he had a couple of runs in Eagle Farm, 1,800, 2,200. So there's 4,000 metres. But then he only had 105 days to his next run. And in between, he had 2 trials. So even though he didn't race during that period, I don't think he actually would have had a spell. He would have just constantly been in training. And it's more the European method. So from a miles in the legs point of view, you count those Eagle Farm runs because he's still in full work. So it's, even though 105 days would indicate, well, he's had a little break, for a staying horse, that wouldn't have happened. So he sort of gets the 4,000 from Eagle Farm, he gets the 1,800 for Caulfield, and then the 2,400 from the Caulfield Cup. So he's close to the 10,000, but he doesn't have it. So that's a negative. The size a negative. The maps are negative. Zara's rode him well and obviously thinks he's a good winning chance, but I really think that map buggers this horse. And if he'd drawn sort of 6 to 10, I'm saying he's a genuine top 3. I think he's gone from a winning chance to, at best, a 3rd or a 4th.
Okay. And so Breakup, it doesn't look like anywhere near the favourite, paying $19 in the lead bet right now for a win. What do you think about Breakup, Dean?
Yeah, he's an interesting runner. Japanese Entar, 5 wins, 7 placements from 22 starts. He's a Group 2 winner over there over 2,500. He's run a Group 1 4th over 2 miles, Group 2 3rd over 3,000 metres in Japan. The Japanese stars have been panels above ours and probably the rest of the world for a long time. The last time they came here, they won a Caulfield Cup with Murder Glass. They won the Cox Plate with Legal Sure, Delta Blues and Pop Rock, Quinella, Melbourne Cup. Maharakti won a Caulfield Cup. Breakup holds somewhat similar form runs and ratings to those sorts of horses. He was disappointing in the Caulfield Cup. But one interesting thing about his form, when you sort of go through it, is he's run some shockers and then he bounced back. Got beat 15 lengths one day, then sort of ran second his next start. He got beaten 23 lengths one day, then ran 3rd over 3,000 metres next start in a Group 2. So he can mix his form, like Luke said earlier. The Caulfield Cup, that track can be pretty hard. Plus, they ran 20 lengths above par in that Caulfield Cup, so it was quite a brutally run race, and it's probably a completely different sort of style of race to what he's going to get in this Melbourne Cup. So maybe just that the bigger track, the 2 miles. Flemington's always softer than Caulfield. Plus his rider that rode him in his sort of Group 1, Group 2 placing over sort of 2 miles in Japan is clawing over. So I just think all those factors mean that he might improve a bit, break up, and I think he's definitely one you've got to sort of throw into your trifectas and consider, because if he runs up to that Japanese form, then he's in the race.
How about you, Luke? You agree with Dean?
Yeah, he's a scary horse for me because I think he's just got a bit of sense of timing about him. So I do all the sectional times over there in Japan, and his 2 staying races over there over the 2 miles have been, I think, 4 seconds from memory and 3 seconds. So significantly slow below par over there. And he's run on and run good sectionals, but for mine, he was always the travelling companion, this horse, for the good Japanese that was coming. And under the VRC protocols, he was gone before he even left the country. So I think they've decided to come and still have a crack. The Caulfield Cup run just left me a bit cold. Yes, a brutal run race, and it wasn't his grand final, but if there was one horse that had the perfect run outside of the winner, it was this horse, and I was bitterly disappointed he couldn't even go past a donkey like Valiant King, and he had the A1 ride and run to do that. So that left me a little bit cold, but he has got a sense of timing about him. It looks like they've bought him from a Melbourne Cup. In their head, they think he's a 2-miler. I just would have liked to have seen him be a little bit stronger the other day, and I've got to say his Japanese form, even though the Japanese are far superior to our animals, he's only just a horse over there. So a bit like Dean, I think 3rd and 4th, you include him, but I don't think he can win.
Okay. Another favourite, Vauban.
Yeah, I think it's Vauban, isn't it? There's a bit of an issue around the pronunciation of this one. A lot of people have been saying Vauban, but I believe it's Vauban. Does that sound right?
Yeah, well, I call him Vauban, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, right, okay. I've read an article about that Vauban is actually the correct pronunciation, and anyway.
Yeah,
we'll find out on the day.
The Pommy commentators call him Vauban, but maybe that's what the owner wants him called.
So this is the favourite.
Oh, right, okay.
We discussed the favourite is not hasn't generally been the best bet. But what do you guys think his chance of winning? You want to start with Luke?
Yeah, really interesting runner. He was sort of, first off, you got to know he's trained by a guy called Willie Mullins, who is an absolute freak of a trainer. I think his career strike rate something like 30-odd%. Largely only trains sort of jumping and hurdling type horses, but there's not probably a trainer on the planet that would have them as fit as what Willie will have them. And he's interestingly got 2 runners in the race. He was bought to go hurdling. He's very good at that discipline. So they brought him to Ascot over the carnival, and it was a firm track. And on his ratings, he probably wouldn't win a Broken Hill Cup. Visually, he was very impressive, but he beat a couple of hairy goats there, and there was nothing in that race. He won by about 4 or 5 lengths. The problem was, I think if something challenged him, he didn't also have anything left in the tank. Maybe he finds a length, but that rating that day was terrible. He ran home in close to 36.8 seconds for the last 600, and that was a day where you could run 34, so there was nothing special about the zip home. I think he was really, really flattered that day. And then his next run that has people talking was on a soft 7, sort of heavy 8. That was a better run. Interestingly, the horse that ran okay in the Caulfield Cup, Valiant King, pushed him that day. And he's by a sire called Galway, who's renowned for getting wet and heavy trackers. So you've got two major flat runs to assess him on. The one on the good track, the ambulance could hit him. The one on the soft track, he's a genuine top 3 chance. My issue is you've got to come all the way around the world, run on a very firm track, and he's 1 or 2 ratings that he's got on a firm track don't even have you close to what's going to be required here. So, but his wet track run probably does put him in the finish. So, for mine, he's a chance, but this horse should be $15, $18. He shouldn't be $3.50. Ryan Moore's won the race previously on our bloke, Protectionist, but and probably, you know, he is the best in the world, but they can't pick him up and carry him, and I'm very, very suspect on this horse's price more than anything. And from a price point of view, you've got to oppose him because there's no reference point to say he should be this price.
Okay. And how about you, Dean?
Yeah, look, I'm certainly not an expert on the overseas races like Luke is, but I just every year we seem to have this boom overseas horse that doesn't run here. You know, Willie Mullins has been here before. He's run a couple of places with Max Dynamite. He tells everyone the horse is better than it. You know, like Luke said, he won an Ascot race, but it wasn't a big race at Ascot. It was sort of just a handicap. It wasn't a group race. Won 50k prize money there. In pounds, he won sort of 30k prize money with his next win. I look at the Soulcombe and Absurde. It won a race where it won 300k, the E-ball, which is usually a good lead up. And Absurde actually going second to Vauban in that Ascot race, but he won by 10 lengths. But he came from a long way back, so Vauban was the wrong pace. And it just sort of, you know, the Soulcombe actually ran more like a Melbourne Cup sort of horse and had a good turn of foot too. But yeah, no, just every year you get these ones at really short price, and if he's sort of going to be 350, 360, I'm happy to oppose him and just bet around him because, like Luke said, he shouldn't be this price.
Okay, so not even a place bet for this one, even though it's a favourite?
Well, for me, he'll win or he'll run well down the track. So, no.
Okay, great. I'm trying to work out my bets. Okay, so number 6, Soulcombe. Soulcombe, yep. What do you think of this one? Why don't we start with Dean?
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting runner. He's racing in consistently good form. He's got a top jockey, Joe Murrell, on board. And he's sort of done some stuff overseas. You know, he's won over sort of 2,800 metres. Won a Queen Elizabeth here over 2,600. So it looks like he's proven he can stay. His big problem is he misses the start. He sort of missed the start 2 lengths first, after he missed it 2 lengths on the Turnbull, and then it got worse and missed it 4 lengths in the Caulfield Cup. He was so far back in the Caulfield Cup that he never sort of really got into the race, but his closing sectionals were still, you know, not the best in the race. You know, without a fight, was from Gold Triple, still ran better sectionals than him, even though he was sort of out the back there. So, you know, I think he's in the mix. He's got, you know, the right sort of trainer and jockey combination. He's got a nice soft draw. If he misses the start, it's going to be very difficult for him. If he doesn't, he's probably in the race. He's just for whatever reason, he's not sort of a horse that I'm hugely keen on to win the race. But by the same token, he's probably a pretty solid chance of running a place and running a decent race. But, he's sort of that sort of horse.
And Luke, do you agree?
Yeah, I do. He's a scary horse for me. This is the one horse that what I'm hanging on to, he doesn't have the miles in his legs. Mm-hmm. And for that reason alone, Chris Waller, typically as a trainer, is you'd regard him as quite fair and soft on them rather than, you know, really send them to the wall. So I'm really concerned about that starting issue. He's had it his whole career, and we saw at Caulfield, he missed it badly. I think it's important with the Caulfield race, they went that quick. Unless horses were midfield or closer, those race shapes are types that you can't do anything from that far back, because by the time you make up the amount of ground needed, you've spent all your carrots and you've still got generally 600 or 800 metres to go. So he's another one that's got a sense of timing. If we remember to last year, Melbourne Cup Day, there was a horse that got off the plane. He was in Chris Waller's name, but he was basically trained by his old trainer. He absolutely pissed in that day, and it's that running I can't get out of my head, because if he produces that puts him probably as the one to beat. But as Dean said, he's more than likely going to be way out the back. I've got an above average tempo for this race, so that probably allows him to come into the race. But I think his two negatives are that terrible habit of missing the start and the fact that he doesn't quite have the miles in his legs. So he's going to need the perfect race shape, but definitely don't leave him out. He's a bit of a scary horse.
Okay, that's great.
Sorry, John, do you mind if I just jump in and ask Luke a follow-up to that? Yeah, Luke, I found it really interesting what you've said about the Chris Waller approach to this race. And I can't help but think that if you, or that you're, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me that you think if he had have gone that harder approach on his horses, got more miles in the legs in the lead up, that he would have probably more than just the one Melbourne Cup winner at this point in his career.
100%. And look, it's not my idea. It was Bart Cummings's theory, and it's just something that just keeps showing up year after year, whether it's a Sydney Cup or Eagle Farm Cup. You need miles in your legs, especially in these big grand final races.
Yeah, very interesting insight, that.
And so, Dean, you touched on Absurde before, who's the next runner. Do you want to follow up with what you were saying there?
Yeah, again, trained by Willie Mullins, so he's got the right trainer. He won the E-Ball last night under a big weight. That race has proven to be a good point of this race in the past. Historically, he's got Zach Turton to ride. He's got a really nice draw, an 8. I thought he hit the line really, really hard in that run before his E-Ball win at Ascot. And I just think the price discrepancy between him and Vauban is much larger than it should be. And if I'm going to back one of them in the race, I'd rather be backing him.
It's $17. He's currently paying $17 with our maker of the month at Lee Bet for a win, or $4.60 for a place. So you think that's like a good bet?
I'd rather be backing him each way than Vauban.
Okay. And how about you, Luke? Do you think of Absurde?
Yeah, interestingly, the E-Ball for mine is always a second-tier handicap. We were lucky enough to win it when it was worth a lot of money a few years ago with Mustajir, and he had a couple of goes here in the Cup and couldn't get close to them. The time this year, what they do in the E-Ball, they have this race over 2,800, which is what the E-Ball is, and they have a 3-year-old edition. Now, the 3-year-olds this year ran about 6 lengths quicker overall, and they come home 4 lengths quicker. So he's a definite tryer, this horse. He will get you the trip. We touched on Willie Mullins before. There's no issue with that bloke. But on good to firm ground, his best run was the E-Ball, but I've got that about 8 to 10 lengths off what will be required here. I don't really give him much hope. He's been bought as the pacemaker for Vauban. Whether he's going to have that speed with some of the Australian horses, I question, but he's definitely been bought as a pacemaker. Now, legally, in theory, you're not allowed to have pacemakers, but that doesn't mean we don't have them. Yep. So he'll be there to set the tempo for Vauban. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And look, he's got 12,900 metres in his legs, so that gives him a tick. He's going to be on speed, which is, you avoid a lot of trouble when you're up and on speed. And we've seen a few Melbourne Cup winners that weren't probably the best horses in the race still win or run placings because of that. So, as Dean said, he's sort of he's probably a better value bet. You'd rather back him the place than Vauban the win, put it that way. And but realistically, I don't think he's much hope, and happy to be around him.
Okay. So number 8, Right You Are. Who wants to kick off for Right You Are? It's not one of the, obviously far away from being a favourite, paying $67 with Elite Bet right now. No chance.
Interesting what you were saying about pacemakers, Luke. Yeah, that might be the case. The one thing I remember about pacemakers is Godolphin tried for many years to win this race when Side Benzura was coming in. I remember about 3 years in a row where they brought a pacemaker that sort of led, and they ran second about 3 times with some of their things, sort of 60 to 1. So sometimes there's not a lot of speed. Those horses just keep sticking on. But anyway,
they do.
I'll hope that happens with Absurde. But Right You Are is a funny horse. I've never been a big fan of this horse. He's sort of never really been one of mine. Sort of been winning over 2,000, 2,400. He just doesn't give any impression that 2 miles is going to suit him. And he might be a bit like Smoking Romans that sort of ran on this race last year and ran down the track for Kieran Maher. But the one thing was that he ran a much improved race, I thought, in the Caulfield Cup. He was sort of in the front with about 200 to go. And of all the, like I said, they ran 20 lengths above par in that race. And he was sort of probably the best of the on-paces, or he was the best of the on-paces. I just know with Kieran Maher, they have the horses so rock hard fit for this race, and they do well with this race. But I don't think he's a fluke about maybe to run sort of 3rd or 4th, just with the Kieran Maher factor and the fact that he's coming off a really strong run, off a strong tempo, which is always a good lead up to the Melbourne Cup, even though it is out of the Caulfield Cup. So I was sort of going to just put a pen for him, but I think he's a rough place out just because of that last run in Kieran Maher.
Okay, and do you agree, Luke?
Yeah, I'm like Dean. He's never been one of mine. He's got 7,800 metres in his legs, so he doesn't tick that box. I was so surprised what he did with the in the Caulfield Cup, but I think that's a combination of he just got sucked along by that tempo, and as I mentioned, there was a lot of that field couldn't get into the race just because of how quick they went because they were too far away. I could tick a box and flick him in for 4th if you're doing a wide first 4, but yeah, a win would surprise me at sort of, or even a top 2 or 3 really. So not for me really.
Okay, it's definitely one of my ones. $10 on $67. And again, this is why I never win. So number 9, Vow and Declare. What do you think of the Vow and Declare? That's also not the bookmakers don't really give much of a chance, I guess, at $34 with Elite Bet. Dean, what do you think?
Well, he won this race a few years ago, and then he's been pretty out of form since then. But his last couple of runs, hit the line really hard for second behind Alligator Blood in the Caulfield Stakes. That was a really, really good run. With really good sort of closing sectionals off a huge speed, and Alligator Blood ran a placing in the Cox Plate, and then he was wide, no cover in the Moonee Valley Cup, and still stuck on and nearly won that. So going as well as he has for a very long time, and like I said, he's won the race before, and I just think even though he's an 8-year-old, sort of did it a few years ago, had Twilight Payment win this at sort of 31 as an 8-year-old, and another 8-year-old ran 3rd, so they can do it. And I think he's again one you'd have to throw in the trifectas and first 4s and that sort of thing, because I think he's a pretty strong place chance at least. Vow and Declare, just because he's racing well, he's in form, he can run the trip.
Okay. And Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely no chance for me. He won his Melbourne Cup, and he got his Christmas birthday and everything else you can say handed to him. It was one of those years where he was on speed. He got an amazing ride by Craig Williams, and nothing pressured him the whole way, and he somehow fell in. He's had 3 runs sort of similar up over this sort of pain barrier since. He got beat 15 lengths in 2020. He got beat 9.5 lengths in 22. And in May, he went to Flemington over 2,800 and got beat 15 lengths. He seems to be going better this prep. He's only got, exactly, He's got 6,300 metres in his legs. Danny O'Brien can do some funky stuff like that, trying to go in a bit fresh, but I don't think that'll work in this instance, and he won't be finishing in the top 4 for my betting ticket, that's for sure.
Okay, I'll skip that one. How about Cleveland? Well, again, not paying very good odds at $26 at Elite Bet. Some bookies aren't giving much of a chance for Cleveland. What do you think? Let's start with Luke.
I was absolutely gutted when he drew outside. I think this is one of the... I think we'll see a roughie this year. I think that's one of the main roughie chances. The gate has just left me horribly cold. They've either got to go right back or right forward. Now, this horse has got a win over Seas at 3,700 metres in a decent rating race. He ran home in 34.3 over 3,700. So the trip will be absolutely no problem whatsoever. He obviously comes out of a Moonee Valley Cup, which was a bit bunchy finish, which I probably don't like. And just sort of knowing the Lloyd Williams tactics, they do like to send them when they draw wide. And I just wonder, is there a bit too much pressure or not? But look, I'm going to be including him in some wide exotics. I think he's a real knockout chance. And, you know, you'll be able to tick the distances, no problem. Whether he's got the class and ability is probably the only question mark. But the horse we just mentioned, Vow and Declare, probably didn't have that class and ability and still was able to win a race, a Melbourne Cup previously. So I think he falls into that sort of category.
Okay, and Dean?
Luke, was he regarded better on a wet track overseas? It sort of seemed like most of his wet track runs were good, and I know in the Sydney Cup they backed him heavily, and I think they thought it was wet track when Joseph O'Brien was training and was going to be a plus, even though he ran down the track that day. Is he better on a wet or dry surface?
I think he's actually one of those ones where his probably record says he's better on a wet, but I don't think you could pot him on a firm track. Moonee Valley is a fake firm track for mine. Moonee Valley and Canterbury, you always got to be very suspect on firm track at those type of tracks because they have a different base. But
yeah,
he's run at Randwick over 2,600. He got beat 2.8 lengths with a little bit of synthetic hoof filler on, and they went 13 lengths above average there in that Land Legend race. So I still think that was quite firm ground. For mine, it's not an issue. But I do take your point, like his record would sort of indicate that he's a wetty. But even when they backed him heavily in the Sydney Cup, I think that was just a case of tactics error. When you watch him, he actually jumps equal with the leaders, but because he drew barrier 16, they just then snagged him back. And I think then his race was completely kaput. I'm tipping they'll go forward Tuesday, and I reckon he'll give a hell of a side, and he's a genuine blow your exotics up type bet. He's, I do give him some hope.
Okay.
Yeah, I sort of had him at a rough place chance, sort of third or fourth type horse again. Might try and do trifectas in first fours, but I didn't sort of quite think he had the class to take it out. I thought he had a good dream run sort of in the Moonee Valley Cup, and that was sort of his race. But I think he sort of he could be a place chance.
And okay, all right then. Oh my God, I lost my spot. We're up to Ashrun, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Yeah, again, Ashrun's chance, the bookies are giving it next to no chance at $34.
Karen McAvoy. Yep.
I suppose I'll start. He's one of my horses. He's run in the Melbourne Cup of when Twilight Payment won it. Was one of the best Melbourne Cup defeats you'll ever see. He come from last, got beat 4 lengths and ran home in some ridiculous 33 seconds or something over the last 600. And that was on a 3-day backup after he'd won the Lexus. So unfortunately, since then, he's had some major issues, and that saw him have the best part of, I think, 1,100 days from memory off. I'm on ability, is a weight for age horse that's carrying no weight on his back, which will be a huge, huge plus for this horse. He gets 51.5, and this horse's whole life he's carried 58 to 61 kilos, really. He's got a bit of class about him. He loves Flemington. He's definitely not a winning chance because he doesn't have the miles in the legs, but he's a classy horse, and there's a lot of horses in this race that are genuine listed ability horses where even though his best days are behind him, I've got no doubt he'll finish top 8 and he could knock a few out in exotics for 3rd and 4th again. But look, unfortunately he can't win. His best days are behind him and he doesn't have the miles, but he's going really, really well. And look, the positive is he comes out of some fast run races, which I like, and it gives him some sort of grounding to run the trip, and the distance will be no problem.
Cool. And Dean, what do you think?
Well, Luke knows, of course, better than anyone. I remember being really keen on him in that 2020 Melbourne Cup, and won a good race in the Geelong Cup, and then he won the Hotham 3 days before, and it was a really good run in that Melbourne Cup. His sections the closing sectionals were the best of the race. I've got them here in front of me, and he was sort of plus 11.3 for the last 1,000, plus 7.6 for the last 800. So, but yeah, for me, I think it's just, he had sort of, he's had 3 years off the scene, and then he's coming into this Melbourne Cup, 4th up. So just hard to see him having had quite enough racing for it. If it had sort of one more preparation, it might have been a different story. But I'm similar to Luke. I think he's got the talent to sort of run a 3rd or 4th, but it's just unfortunate that he had that injury. Otherwise, Luke would have had a whole lot of fun with him, I think, over the last few years. Just one of those unfortunate circumstances where he got injured, but he's a good horse.
Okay. Number 12 is Daqiansweet Jr. That's a great name. But this is where we get.
I don't know how you pronounced it right, so well done.
I watched The Wire and stuff like that, So this is where we get into the ridiculous territory, paying $101 at Elite Bet for a win and $26 for a place. Do you give Daqiansweet Jr. any chance, Luke?
No. 7,700 metres in his legs. From memory, he won an Adelaide Cup or something. But he's one of those ones that'll be out the back. He doesn't have a lot of gate speed, and I think connections will be there, sort of trying to ride him to run top 12 to get a check. But I don't have really any positives about this bloke.
I'm going to put a bet on it that Dean will agree.
Yeah, like he's won that Adelaide Cup, I'm sure, in his Sydney Cup. He actually ran 6th in this race last year, which is, probably running better than expectations. Because he can stay, he'll he could sort of run a nice 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, get in on as a check, but he's not worth betting on in any capacity.
And I'd say you'd think the same around the next runner, Okita Sushi. Who's also paying the same $101 for a win and $26 for a place. Okita
Sushi and Sheraz, the next two for me, just put a pen through them for mine.
Yeah. You as well, Luke?
No. So Okita Sushi, his most recent win was June at Ascot. Now, to give you an idea, he rated that race the exact same as what Vauban did on his soft track, and Okita Sushi did it on a firm track. So that run alone puts him right in the race. Sydney's had 3 really good apprentices this year, and I think Dylan's probably long-term going to be the best of them. So I'm really keen for him to get a ride there on a chance. But you've got to have a look at this horse's overseas form. He's carried basically his whole life. He's carried between 61, 63. He's carried 75 one day. He drops to 51. If he had drawn a gate, I was going to declare him a top 4 chance. The gates really, really left me a little bit cold. But his best hope was going to be to draw soft and end up forward and midfield. And if he did that, I would have said he'll nearly be a good thing to run top 4. Unfortunately, barrier 20's just cruelled his chances. Joseph he's a very, very good trainer. Very, very good. He's got miles in his legs. He's got 15,900. And he's the real, if you want to back 100 to 1 shot, this is the horse to back.
How about a place? $26? I don't want to go for, in all reality, $101.
Look, I don't think it's the worst place bet you'll ever have in your life. Like I said, if he'd drawn some type of map, his chances, I could have had him $21, $18 in that range somewhere. So to win,
Wow.
The map, what they do, he has been ridden negative in the past. I think his Caulfield Cup run was basically a stretch your legs. And interestingly, when you watch that race, he was basically last the whole way. And yes, they sucked up the fence, but he was very, very good late sectionally, and he sustained his run. So what that tells you is he'll run the trip no problem, where a lot of these horses won't. And he's definitely the best each way, absolute roughie in the race.
Right. But do you think Sheraz, Dean just mentioned he put a pin in Sheraz. What do you think of Sheraz, Jim?
I'm not a wine drinker, and I don't think this is any hope.
And another Chris Waller horse too, Sheraz.
Look, I know they paid a bit of money for him. He's done okay, but again, he's another Chris Waller one coming here with 8,700 metres in their legs, and it's just not enough. You rarely win a Melbourne Cup unless you get the miracle race shape with no pressure and it ends up a sit and sprint home. You know, it's happened in the past, very elegant. Green Moon won one year. But, yeah, I think form factors, doesn't have the fitness, and also gets a bit of a tricky sort of map for that particular horse.
Yeah, I guess you agree, Dean, for Sheraz.
Yeah, it's not going well enough.
And I love this next one, Lastotchka. That's
brilliantly pronounced. I thought you said you don't know these horses.
I'm just making them up as I go. What do you think of Lastotchka?
Craig Williams' horse, yeah.
Yeah. Luke, we'll start with you.
Right, she's another one of my horses. She's knee high to a grasshopper, and I actually think the gait is a big positive with her. If she's drawn inside, she's very robust, but she's not very big, and I would have hated to see her in the pack. So her racing pattern, she comes out of France. French races are typically run slow early, and then they really ramp it up from about the 1,000 home. She's got a really good turn of foot, and she's got the heart the size of a lion. She's never, ever run poorly in her life. She comes off a last start Group 3 win over 3,100, so it's going to tick a lot of boxes there. If it was wet, she would have been a genuine top 3 chance. Firm's not against her, but she just seems to excel in the wet. Firm, she's a genuine top 6 chance. Can she win? On pure ratings, I've got her probably 2 to 3 lengths off those top horses. But she's a real try. She's going to get the distance. I think the gate will be fine. She'll go back, rider to hit the line. And if she gets the right run into the race with uninterrupted run, she's a 3rd and 4th one for your exotic.
Oh, great. And so this is her Australian debut, I'm just reading.
Yeah, so we bought her out of France. She come on the second shipment. She's won on a number of firm tracks, so don't let that disappoint you. Even though she's better on a firm, and she does bring different form. Like she's run, she got beat 3 lengths to a horse called Simca Mile up there, and he'd be in the top 3 sort of staying horses, probably top 5 in Europe, top 2 in France. There's really deep form lines with her, and when she gets beat, she doesn't get beat too far. And the trainer was absolutely filthy when the owner sold her to us. Just wanted her out of the stable that day. Just had the shits big time. And I know Mick Kent and Mick Jr. are in love with her, just how well she's worked. And Craig Williams, he's a bit of a card player. He likes to try them all out, and he come and rode her, and he wasn't getting off her after the first ride. So she'll whether you can win a Melbourne Cup with this sort of platform of sort of not running recently. She's had 65 days since she's ran, which she did win. That's about the maximum that you want historically, but it is a positive. She does go well fresh. There's lots and lots of potters. Probably, if she'd drawn sort of 15 or so, it would have been slightly better because we could have been a few pairs closer. But she brings different form to a lot of these, and there's a lot of question marks and probably a lot of lack of depth. If she gets a clear crack at them, she will be right there.
Okay, what about you, Dean? You support Luke's horse?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to hearing what Luke had to say about her, because I sort of I like that French form has held up a lot in the Melbourne Cups. We've seen the likes of sort of Dina Din, the American, these sorts of horses come from over there, and Luke doesn't sort of buy these Melbourne Cup horses for no reason. So he's obviously run the sectionals and done enough for him. I agree. She from what I've seen of her, she's sort of a small, lightly framed thing, and they usually skip along in the wet. So if it had been a really wet track, it would have just aided her even further. But she's got Craig Williams, and she's in form, and I think in terms of the lightweight chances, she's definitely one of the best of them. And I think you've got to throw her in everything. So,
she never carried this weight. The lowest weight she's ever carried is 55.5. So she won't know herself, and I think that's one issue where weight does help these littler horses, So
yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
A good chance.
Okay, so moving on to Magical Lagoon, who's ridden by, I love the name Duplessis. There's also a UFC fighter. His name is Duplessis, and I just love the way it sounds.
and a cricketer, yeah.
Yeah, and, good South African name. But bookies are giving this one no chance. What about you guys? Dean, maybe we'll hear from you first.
The UFC fighter and the cricketer are better than the jockey, I think.
So the UFC fighter is going to fight for the title, hopefully.
I know the horses in that flash. I don't like it. I think it's probably a good chance of running last.
Oh wow! Can you bet on who runs last?
You can take a sweep.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. This is just
another Chris. Another Chris Waller horse. You guys don't sound too keen on the Chris Waller horses today.
No, look, Chris is just a freakish trainer, but I think he gets the Melbourne Cup wrong every year. She's got 5,800 metres to her name. I think she won an Irish Oaks or something like that, and it was a good year that year, but she's just come here and just shown nothing like that form. She's not going to be fit enough. I think gives Mr. Yang a runner in the race, but like a lot of the horses here, that's why they're here, just to give him a runner. But she won't finish, and I agree with Dean. I think she'll finish next to the ambulance.
Okay. So then military mission. What do you give the military missions chances, Dean?
I like this horse. I've sort of followed this horse through its whole career since it first came to Australia. It trialled really well when it first came. Sort of backed it quite a few times on the way through. This prep has improved. It won the Newcastle Cup and was really strong on the line there. The Metrop I thought was a really good run. Sort of got a fair way back. Was sort of wide the whole way. It just sort of couldn't get in from the barrier. And then I thought Zach Lloyd just went too early on him. And he probably should have run third at big odds when I was on him. Kalapour just sort of beat him. He beat home, ran past Cleveland and Boy Star Gent, and then ran fourth in the Caulfield Cup. Performed that awful out of that Metrop. And then he won the Herbert Power, and the sectionals were really not that flash in the Herbert Power, and they were sort of an average horse that ran third. But he carried 57. He drops to sort of 51 here. Rachel King coming up a win in the Coolmore, and she actually rides the staying races really well. She won the Sydney Cup. I like him with a lightweight chance. I think he draws well. He's just going to sit there. You can be reasonably close in sort of the top 8 and running. Get a nice, easy, sort of economical run, and I think he can run a really big race. I just sort of feel like he's running into form, and he gives the impression that he could run out the trip.
How about you, Luke? Does Military Mission have enough miles in the legs?
Yeah, you talk about trainers that know how to set them for the races. It's certainly Gay Waterhouse and Bott. 13,300 metres in the legs. The gate, I think, probably gives it 4 or 5 lengths compared to some of these. I've got him sort of bang on midfield. A bit like Dean, he's running at Newcastle was amazing. Metrop was good. Herbert Power was good enough. I'm not like Dean. I don't rate the rider at all, but I think you need an experienced rider that has a clock in their head. And no offence, but I don't think Rachel has. I think it'll run top 10, but I can't see it running top 3. So it sort of falls into that category there somewhere. The gate really helps it it'll get a check, but it checks the connections, but probably not for punters.
Okay.
It's been 10 years since Gay Waterhouse won the Cup with Fiorente, so wonder if she can do it again 10 years later. Maybe not, from what you guys are saying.
We're not over yet.
She's got Serpentine as well. Serpentine. There you go.
Yeah.
The easy ones, I don't know what to call them. What's Gay Waterhouse's chances with Serpentine? Serpentine. What do you think, Luke?
Yep. Serpentine. He's got 14,200 miles in his legs. The gate's outstanding for him. I think he'll be forward of midfield. He'll get that suck run that does no work. Whether he's quite got the ability, but look, if you look at some of his runs up in Queensland against the Caulfield Cup winner without a fight, I think that puts him right in the race. Now, he's another one that very rarely has carried anything but, significantly higher weight than what he's going to carry here. I reckon he's one of the best roughies in the race. He did run in this race last year, started $34 and got beat 100 lengths, but that was on a sort of wet track. I think he's going okay, and he's got a real sense of I've been set for the race. Gay's effort to win with him in March, first up at Eagle Farm, I thought was outstanding. He probably doesn't win out of turn a lot of races, but he's one that's going to blow a lot of people out in exotics, and I think you've got to put him in all bet types.
Okay. How about you, Dean? What do you think?
I think he's a bit of a plotter, but he sort of sticks on. But I agree, he dropped sharply in weight here. Gay's got him going a lot better than he was when Lloyd Williams was training him himself. And his sort of run in the Bart Cummings was solid enough with 58. I think that it's just a case of 51 kg, Jai McNeil, who led all the way in the Melbourne Cup on Twilight Payment. I think he'll try and do the same here. I'd say they'll push to lead with Serpentine. And just depending if some of those others like Absurde or whatever want to cross and really sort of strong tempo. But I think he'll be right up on the speed, and he'll stick away, and he could run sort of a third or fourth. He's sort of that sort of rough place chance.
Paying $12 for a place is not a bad bet then, I guess. So runner 19, Virtuous Circle. What do you think, Luke?
Virtuous Circle, look, 8,500 metres. He's gets back, and that's all the good things I can say about him.
Not a lot. How about you, Dean? Do you have something nice to say about Virtuous Circle?
No. It'll be nice for them to have a runner, but I don't think he's going to do anything.
Paying $101, so nobody in the world kind of gives him any chance at anything, yeah. So we can skip over Virtuous Circle basically and talk about more Felons. What do you think, Luke, with more Felons?
Yeah, so this horse, if those keen beans are doing their European form, he was formerly called Scriptwriter overseas. Richard Pegan bought him, and Richard's not a bad judge. He buys a lot of cheap horses over there for not much money, and they've done well. He's won the Melbourne Cup previously. He's run this year against Hamish at York, was a really high rating race, and then he finished midfield to Absurde in the Ebor. The Geelong Cup for me was a real smelly race with such a blanket finish and a few suspect form lines being close. If there was one horse out of that race you want to take, it's this horse. He come from back, typical first up sort of run. Interestingly, this horse has been in work forever, so if Chris Waller's going to win the race this year, it'll be with this horse.
Okay.
To be brutally honest, what you usually find is these horses off the plane, I assess them more on what their previous trainer has done with them rather than the one that basically puts the head collar on them race day. He's got 29,900 metres in his legs, so he wants the race to be run as brutal as possible, especially from his gate because he'll get back. He's some type of knockout chance. Most punters won't find him simply because they won't know him. They won't know the connection. They won't know the form overseas. He's a genuine place chance, even from a rubbish gate. But some of that form over there is okay. He's just probably he's won 4 from 15. He's still lightly raced. Sorry, that's absurd. He's won 4 from 14. He's still lightly raced. I just think he's a horse that will not know himself with no weight on his back, and he'll be charging late, this horse, and don't dismiss him.
And you, Dean, do you dismiss him, or do you agree with Luke? Good luck to Richard Pegan. I've spoken to him before. He's a nice guy, and he's had some great success in the past. I remember he won a race with a horse at 100-1, the Queen Elizabeth, I think, one year. I don't know, I think he got beat 12 lengths by Vauban. At Ascot, he sort of got beat 3.3 lengths by Absurde. He came and ran well there first up, but I agree with Luke. The Geelong Cup, the 10-year-old won the race. The Lucan ran third, is not good form. So I think it was a bit of a question of race, but he was, I agree, the best run of that race. I think they'll have fun with this horse, but I think, I don't know, all of this might have just come a bit too soon. And I'm just leaving him out, although by the same token, he wouldn't surprise me if he ran a really nice race, but I'm just sort of just going to work around him.
Okay. Now this is the horse with my favourite name in the race, Future History. What do you think of Future History, Luke?
I will vomit if he does anything, because I had the chance to buy him early this prep, and I just didn't think he was good enough. He's a listed Group 3 sort of horse at best. I don't like those form lines he comes through. And even though he's got a big, fat, sexy record as far as never missing the top 3, there's been some real smelly races there, and he's really done nothing. He's sort of, every now and then you get these horses that just, they have their Christmas and birthday every time they go around, and I think he's one of them. Craig Williams obviously was on him, and he decided to jump off for Lastotchka, and he's just not a winning chance for me. Interestingly, Showcasing has none of his progeny won a stakes race over this sort of distance either. So I think it's all a bit of a wing and a prayer, but not for me.
And you, Dean, not for you as well, or you think there's a chance?
Yeah, like he won at Moonee Valley over 2,000. It led, and they ran 30 lengths below par for the early sectional. Then he ran second at Moonee Valley, ran 12 lengths below sectional, but below par. Bar Cummings, they ran 3 lengths below par, and he led all the way and had a birthday. And he was kind of a solid third in the Moonee Valley Cup. It had every chance. I think the main point with him is sort of Kirimar, these horses down the bottom of the weights. He always gets one to sort of run a place. So he's the type of horse, although I don't think he's any superstar, you'd want to maybe chuck him in for third or fourth and get trifectas in first horse. This is the type of horse that can sometimes gets to just run a big bottler and run a place. So there's a chance of doing that.
Okay. So what about interpretation, Dean? Ran a 22. And not bookies don't have any love for him at $81 with the lead bet. What do you think?
I think he's actually probably the best place bet roughly in the race. I've always had quite an opinion of in the Kirimarr stable. They've always really talked this sort of horse up. And he did have some good sort of Group 1 form and Group 2 type form in the UK and France before he came here. He sort of didn't have much luck last prep. He sort of caught wide in races and he sort of ran third in the Bart Cummings, wasn't a bad run behind Luna Flair, and then he was sixth in the Geelong Cup, but he was lame. And he got pulled up in the Melbourne Cup when I sort of was, reasonably keen on him as a rough horse, and then he's sort of come back this prep. I think he's been really targeted again for this race. His Bart Cummings run was actually really big. If you watch the replay, he sort of got stuck on the fence, then he had to hook all the way out, sort of 10 wide to get a run. He ran plus 3.6 for the last 200 metres, which was the best sectional quite clearly of the race. And that was sort of when he was just starting to get going, which gave me the impression that the distance won't hold too many fears for him. And then he sort of won the Bendigo Cup. His form lines are pretty much identical to High Emotion, who ran third in this race last year at 50 to 1. He again came off a Bart Cummings run that was solid, sort of probably balance and after Bart Cummings, and then won the Bendigo Cup. And had Teo Nugent ride it as well. And in fact, Teo Nugent sort of wouldn't be lightweight for Kirimarr, ran third last year with High Emotion, ran fourth the year before. So for me, this is just the exact type of horse that sort of Kirimarr gets up at a place. Although I don't think he can win, I can still see sort of $20, $21 a place available with some bookies. And for me, at the moment, it's probably my favourite bet. I just think I think he's a really, really strong place chance this horse, and I'm going to be unloading on him to place.
Okay, so it's $19 currently with an elite bet for a place, and our best I'll beat up on it's actually $19 with a elite bet. What about you, Luke? You think it's worth $19? A $19 bet for a place?
I'm shit scared of Dean because he's so clever. 6 day backup, I think, is just whenever you get these horses up 2,400 and above, any horse that's on a 7-8 day backup is just so scary. Their stats are fantastic. For mine, I just question his ability. He had really good stakes form overseas, but that was as a 3-year-old. He beat Okita Sushi one day in a good race, and Okita Sushi was probably a bit unlucky that day, coming off a rubbish platform. His run at Longchamp, where he got beat 2 lengths, was definitely good enough, but for mine, I'm just saying on his current form, I don't like him as much as probably what Dean does. 11,000 metres in his legs, so he certainly ticks that box. Just on Dean's wrap, I'll probably include him in, minor monies, but for me, I just don't think he's classy enough to win.
Okay, then. Oh, no, I don't know who to trust. So what about Kalapour? Kalapour, Luke? Are they worth a place bet at least at $15 in the league bet?
Yeah, I know if you talk to the stable, Kalapour will beat Cleveland every day of the week just on track work. But it's not judged on track work. It's obviously race day. He's a super consistent horse. He was actually one horse I was trying to buy, and the other connections got in and got under our neck and got him. He's not really Melbourne Cup level. In saying that, he will run the trip. He's very, very clean-winded, and they said he's pulled up like he hasn't gone around from yesterday, which is a massive sign. And he's another one of these horses that comes out of all these recent racings where they've been brutal run races, and yet he's racing so well. So I think that stands you in very good stead to go up to a new pain barrier. As I mentioned before, there's 3 really good apprentices in Sydney. For mine, Zach Lloyd was number 3, even though he won the title. Tactically, I think he can get caught out quite a bit. And I don't think he has as good a clock in his head as some of the others. And if it's one thing we know about staying races, you need a rider that has a very good clock in their head. And that probably, for mine, just sort of negates his chances a little bit. I think Dean mentioned there before, the Lexus winner doesn't have a great record in recent time. And that probably just dulls my enthusiasm there. But the fact that he's so genuine and the fact that he's race hard fit, my main bet in a Melbourne Cup each and every year is the first 4. So I'll be ticking 3rd and 4th boxes for him. But he's not good enough to win.
Okay. And what do you think, Dean?
He's not good enough to win. He's another that, if you like them, you can chuck him for 3rd or 4th in the trifectas today. But I'm probably even struggling to do that. I think he's sort of just trotted away so far. He's had a birthday up front where the fence was suited on Saturday, and they've been struggling to back up lately. So I think Zach Lloyd. I like Zach Lloyd as a future rider. I think between him, Tyler Schuller, and Dylan Gibbons, they're all very good. Zach Lloyd's my favourite at the moment, but I also agree with Luke that he's making real tactical errors of late. Made a tactical error in military mission in the net shop we went to earlier. He didn't really ride militarised particularly well in the Cox Plate, and I think he's just lightly out of form after being in form for so long. But I can see in a couple of years with experience, I think he's going to be a rider that rides a lot of Group 1 winners, Zach Lloyd, and he's just getting experience at the moment. This would be a good experience for him, but I'm probably going to be learning Kalapour out on ability.
Okay. And the last runner for the race, who wants to go first with True Marvel?
No way.
Yeah. he needs some sticks in front of him and probably 5,000 metre race rather than a 3,000 metre race. Interestingly, just how fit he is. He's got the best part of 49,000 metres next to his name. So he won't lack for fitness if it's a drag him out, knock him down, sort of brutal staying race. That might see he can run top 10, but no hope in the world.
Just looking at those elite bet odds, John. True Marvel's the least chance of winning at $126.
Yeah,
on the last line of betting.
No one's given True Marvel any chance at all.
I don't know, Luke, if you've looked much at those hurdle steeples, there's $1 million steeples and plus in Japan and these other places, and sometimes wonder with some of these horses like True Marvel, and you probably had some in your time too. Like there's got to be a point where you actually decide to look at them overseas with some of these really rich hurdle and steeple races, because he's the type of horse that's just the ideal for that. I know he has won. I think he's won one hurdle race, and once they get him over the jump, he'll probably win everything here. But they've got some rich ones over long distances, and he's a 2-mile horse.
Yeah, they do, and it's interestingly overseas, especially in Europe, their hurdle horses are just as valuable as their flat horses. It's more of a prestige thing over there. Sort of, we had a champion the last couple of years called Saunter Boy, the big grey fella, who's retired now, but he won $1 million here just going over the hurdles, and he was only a listed sort of horse at best here on the flat. So, just look, we've got the Melbourne Cup favourite this year that was bought as a hurdler. So, and he'll probably be destined for hurdles when he goes back. So, but it's happened in the past. We've had the odd hurdler come out and win the race. So, we'll. I don't think it'll be this year, but we'll see.
Thanks, guys. That was actually really enlightening. At some points, I did feel like I was talking to software developers and just nodding along, pretending I understood what you were saying. I definitely learned a lot. Just to finish up today, how about we start with Dean and we get a top 5 selections and a betting strategy?
Top 5, I think in terms of value, I think, Without a Fight, I like Absurde, I think is decent value of the overseas horses, as is Lastotchka. I got it wrong. Lastotchka. You did better than that.
Lastotchka.
I think it's, I think there's a good value with them. I do like Military Mission. I think it's going to run a big race. And I thought sort of Breakup, the Japanese horse is still a chance, and all of those horses without a fight are sort of, 20 or 30 to 1. So I'm sort of working around those 5. And then, like I said, I think Interpretation is the place bet at sort of $21 a place that I'll be going hard on. And then, if you're having sort of your trifectas, they're sort of the 6, and if you're throwing some others into place, I think you got to throw in. I might want to throw in the favourite Vauban. Definitely Gold Trip will run a big race, and probably like the Vow and Declare and Soulcombe as well. A place chance is just going a bit wider if you're the type that wants to take a trifecta or a first 4. Tricky sort of race this year. I'm not enormously keen on anything in particular, and so I'm probably going to focus most of my attention on just a couple of roughies like Military Mission and Interpretation to place, and just see if anything changes on the day.
Dean, can I just ask, how have you got the speed in the races? Have you got slow or medium or fast?
My database sort of does it based on the first 600 metres, and just based on their actual speeds that they've run in those first 600 metres, and got an above average speed. But it doesn't know what to do with Absurde either. So it's sort of got Serpentine, Magical Lagoon, Breakup, sort of the first 3. Then Right You Are and Future History probably sitting right behind them. And I think Military Mission then maps nicely just behind those. And then you sort of got like the Vow and Declare and Cleveland and Sheraz and Interpretation all sort of out wide. They're going to want to come across. And then if you've got a Absurde up there as well, I think there'll be a decent tempo. I think a plotter like Serpentine is probably going to want to set a reasonable tempo to be any chance. And there's probably enough horses in here that need to be on speed or are being used as pacemakers to ensure a genuine tempo. That's what I think. What about yourself?
Yeah, look, I was the same. I had above average tempo. I thought the hurdler, True Marvel, his only hope is to sort of serve it up to him and try and annoy those sort of front ones and whatnot. I don't think they'll try and ride him cute. And I suppose Vow and Declare is not a fast horse, but I think they're forced to go forward and try and slot in. And typical Lloyd Williams, I don't think they like their horses going right back too often. So the fact that Cleveland's got gate speed, I think you'll see him right on speed or wide out the back, and I'm probably leaning more on speed. So typically in these race shapes, you don't want to sort of have horses caught wide. So those inside draws, I think, are going to be gold, especially those ones that can sort of sit midfield and do no work, and then it's just a case of sort of praying for a run.
Okay, and so do you have 5 tips for your top 5 selections, Luke, that you could give us some insight into?
Yeah, I'm like Dean this year. I think it's a genuine. Sadly, the race quality is not as good as it has been in previous years due to the VRC requirements, but I think it's a very even race this year, and as a result, I do think those exotics are going to pay quite handsomely, because I do think a roughie will win the race. I'm not super keen on one particular horse. I think if we get Vauban out of the top 4, the first 4 will pay fantastic, and that'll be my betting strategy. It'll be to try and put most of my investment in this particular race in a wide first 4. But if I probably had to pigeonhole them, I think the best each way is Serpentine at huge odds. I think Gold Trip probably doesn't miss top 4. He's just going too good. On my ratings, the best horse on current form is Without a Fight, but like I said, he's got a few question marks. He's got a terrible map, and he's got that distance query that, he's won a couple of races at 27 and 2800 in Europe, and some of them weren't fantastic. The three horses that have got a smell as if they've been set for one race only is Soulcombe, Serpentine, and Breakup. But like I said, we've mentioned the Waller setup. Serpentine, it's a huge question whether he's actually classy enough, and probably the same for Breakup. So, look, I think if you're going to have a bet, if you've got your $50 or $100, don't just try and find the winner. Put it and try and snag the first four, because it wouldn't surprise me if this paid 100, 200,000 this year. I could see a number of roughies in the race. Serpentine Gold Trip's not a roughie, but if he misses a top four, and there's some genuine value to be had in the horses of like Lastotchka, Okita Sushi, more Felons, those type of horses. So, bit of a dog's breakfast this year. There's sort of not a real obvious sort of horse. I think the obvious horse in the race is Vauban, and he's obvious because he's the wrong price. So, even though it might be the option, I think you're better around him. And if you want to back a $3.50 winner, get Dean's stuff, because he'll find you a lot safer bet than $3.50 than what Vauban will be. And they still pay you the same if we're at Newcastle or Brisbane,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Sorry, Luke, I just got a quick one before we wrap up. In what way, you mentioned those VRC requirements might have sort of reduced the quality in the race this year. I'm just wondering if you could just go into a bit more detail on that one, just for our listeners. Like, in what ways are those requirements reducing the quality of the race?
Look, the overseas community, horse racing community, just basically laughs at Australia now, and with these probably quite invasive exams that the horses have got to go through. You're getting multiple Group 1 winning trainers that have been training their whole life being told by a vet that's never seen the horse that their horse is not suitable to come to Australia to race because it might break down. And a lot of connections have sort of said, well, we don't need the Melbourne Cup. And as a result, it's just really dropped off the radar internationally. There's so many big money races now in Saudi, Dubai, America, Hong Kong, Japan. Our prize money probably hasn't gone up enough to attract those better horses. It's got that prestige, and that's the only thing that's keeping the Melbourne Cup going at this stage, is the prestige. The Pommies love the prestige, but they also understand it's such an expensive exercise to come here. It'll be the best part of 120 to 150,000 to bring your horse here and bring it back to Europe to come. So if you're coming and then to run the risk that the vet that doesn't know your horse tell you that you can't run, it's a damn expensive exercise. And unfortunately, all the numbers from the imports you're seeing are dropping off. Previous years, we've sort of had between 30 and 40 horses come each year to quarantine, not just to run in the Melbourne Cup, but to run in other races. And this year, they usually bring 2 shipments. And this year, on the second shipment, there was 1 horse coming for the Melbourne Cup, and that was my horse, Lastotchka, where normally there'd be 8 or 10 or 12, So it's a bit of a shame, and probably the quality of the field reflects that. And that's why the race is so open this year. Your best 2 horses in the race, Gold Trip and Without a Fight, carry a little bit more weight. And that's why there's so many horses on the limit this year, or carrying 50, 51, that range. Probably just reflects the quality, because without disrespecting the race, there's a lot of these horses that would start in a listed race and wouldn't start favourite. And it's just the way it sort of turned out. So, hopefully they can fix that.
What was that? That's a shame. So just before we wrap up, if you guys have got anything else to add, I'll just let our listeners know that this podcast was brought to you by Winning Edge. Winning Edge Investments provides industry-leading betting tips, advice, and education, enabling you to invest intelligently and generate long-term profits by treating your betting as a business. Go to winningedgeinvestments.com. So yeah, before we wrap up, once again, thanks guys for all of that information. Dean, have you got a special tip for us for the day?
I haven't had a really close look yet at Flemington, but I've got one at sort of 60 to 1, 66 to 1 that I thought was a one that can, if you've done your day on the Melbourne Cup, then you might be able to get it back quickly in the race afterwards. There's a horse called Aprilia, trained by Andrew Forsman. He's a very good trainer. He used to train with Murray Baker in New Zealand. 3 starts back at that sort of 3 wide, no cover, only got beat 2 lengths over 1400. Then it ran second in the Edward Manifold, and the winner there was Zardozi. The third horse was Amazonian Lass, and they quinellaed the Wakeful on Saturday, and they drew away from the rest of the field. Her other 2 runs in Australia were poor, but they were both at Moonee Valley. I just have a feeling that she just doesn't like Moonee Valley, so she gets back to Flemington here. She's race on speed. She's drawn a bit wide, so she kind of need to slot in. But if she does slot in, 66 to 1 is just a crazy price for that horse who's beaten home Amazonian Lass twice this prep, and it won the Wakeful, and like I sort of had no luck in the Jim Maloney as well. So I just thought there's one that stood out for me as a horse at 66 to 1, which would probably be more like $12. I think Komachi's coming up a 38-day break as a favourite. And it's had a few grand finals, so it's sort of an afterthought. The Seal's a really nice filly. I like her, but I'm not totally sure if 1400 is going to suit her. I think Commemorative is short odds, but sort of got beat first up with a 7.5k weight advantage to Kazoo. It was just okay on Saturday. So I'm just, I just think 66 to 1 is a huge price about Aprilia.
Awesome. That's my kind of bet. How about you, Luke? Do you have any special tip for us?
I've just got over the nightmare of Nugget getting beat this day last year because I had it going to win a small set of flat. Still gives me shivers. Yeah, I've got one here, and it's a blast out type of bet for you if we haven't got the first 4 in the Melbourne Cup. A horse I own called Inver Park in race 10 at Flemington. He's a genuine Group 2 ability horse. He's not a big fella, but he's got to carry the 60 kilos. But I thought it was a 2-horse sort of race with Inver Park. He was $10, $12. I think you could back him heavily. He's been horribly unlucky in some of his runs in Australia so far. He does no work. 1400's perfect. Jamie Spencer will ride him terrific. And at $12, I really didn't think you could miss. With the danger being the thing of Mars, Caudle Lane. Not 100% sure what price he was, but I think you could play those 2 in that particular race. And probably the other one on the day of mine that should run particularly well. And again, I haven't got the prices in front of me, but race 6 at Randwick, a horse called Ezekiel. He was huge first up. He gets no weight. He's going particularly well. And I just thought he was a really good value bet in a distance that should be right up his alley. So they were the 2 sort of left field ones. But, yeah, my advice would be this year particularly, don't be afraid to sort of, whether you want to box 6 or 8 in a Melbourne Cup and just get a little 10% or 20% type bet. Your other option is, do something between what Dean suggested, where you might back 5 or 6 to win and 8 to place and 10 to run third and a few wider to run fourth, and sort of stagger it to try and include a few more and get a bigger dividend. But we look at this race every year, and the trifectas, but especially the first 4s, pay massive, massive overs. I think this year, because the race is so open, you're better to go for a first 4, and even if you have to tick the field box for 4th, with the exception of taking out, 2 or 3 of those absolute no-hopers that me and Dean might have mentioned previously. But Yeah, it's the one race I love to splurge a little bit on in terms of an exotic, because if you can get it, it could make a huge difference in your financial situation.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. So thanks Dean from Winning Edge and Luke from Australian Bloodstock. It's been, as I said, it's been really, really insightful. And hopefully we all do well on Melbourne Cup on Tuesday.
At Winning Edge Investments, our team of highly skilled expert analysts and full-time professional punters review the data, crunch the figures, assess the best betting opportunities, and deliver them to your phone via our app and your email inbox in real time so you profit. Go to www.winningedgeinvestments.com, look at our membership options, make your choice, and enter the promo code PODCAST to receive a special 25% discount on your first membership just for listening. That's PODCAST in capital letters for a 25% ongoing discount on your first membership. Treat your betting like a business and invest intelligently with Winning Edge Investments.